competition time. If you can guess what song that is, I am going to shout out your name in my next video. So just try to guess. I've obviously. What's up, Bangani? Today's video is just about the different segments that you can join if you decide to do your articles to become a CASA through an audit firm. So the traditional way, the tip way. So if you haven't checked out last week's video, maybe you should give it a try just so that you understand what this video is about. But even if you haven't watched it, it's okay, just continue watching. So if you are in an audit firm or planning to go to an audit firm, you will find that sometimes your company will ask you which segment or which industry you would like to go into. So the reason for this is that audit is trying to move into a very specialized way. They are trying to move all of us into such a way where you become a master of your industry. So like previously, everyone would audit anything. So you would audit a bank, then you would audit a retail, then you would audit a nail company, then you would audit, you'd audit everything. And then I think they think that there's no continuity in doing that because, you might be really good with banking and you've learned all of this stuff in your audit, and then you take all of that knowledge and you go and you audit a small company that has got nothing to do with banking, So I think this is just for continuity purposes. They're trying to merge, or they're trying to move in such a way that in the future people are specialized. So if you are going to a big four firm, usually, the other small firms might also have this, but usually big four firms will ask you, do you want to go public? Do you want to go private? Do you want to go financial services? And even with the big four firms, not all of them. So if you are in a smaller office, like maybe Pietermaritzburg, Durban, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, all of those are usually quite small satellite offices. So you might not be able to specialize and become a master of a certain thing because there's not enough of you trainees in that office. Unlike if you're in Joburg, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of companies to audit, so they will always try to put you into segments. So anyways, if you are someone who is facing this, or you might be facing it, just keep watching and I will just run you through the basics of what it is, because I got really frustrated last year when I had to choose and I had no idea. Like, I was just like, angazi, and I chose the one side because I thought this and this would happen, and it actually turned out to be the complete opposite. So I am here to sort of manage your expectations, just to make sure that you guys are not stuck in segments that you would have really not chosen if you had known more. And you'll find that when it is time for you to sign, when it is time for you to choose, companies are really quick. It's not like they give you 5 weeks to say, okay, go think about it, and then come back and let us know. No, usually you pick whilst you're filling out your contract, like, okay, so no, where do you want to go? And it's like, public. Lapo I wasn't to public, like what happens in public. So cool. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please do leave a comment if you have enjoyed it, or if you do believe you will enjoy it. And yeah, let's just share the knowledge, I guess. Okay, so from my knowledge, there are usually 3 categories that they split you over. It's usually financial services, so these are things like banks and insurance companies. Or it's your general, so this is like public companies. These are companies that are listed on the JSE, so companies that you can buy shares in, basically. And if you don't know how to buy shares, please do check out my video on how to buy shares. Okay, cool. As I was saying, these are listed companies, and sometimes it is PCAOB. I will get into it. And then the last segment is private. Private companies are companies that there are no shares like publicly traded. You cannot buy shares into that company. So 3. So just to go with financial services, like I said, banks, insurance companies, all of those things. These companies are usually quite specialized, and they usually have quite a lot of IT. So there are certain requirements and there are certain trainings that are specific for people in financial services. I know it's rumored to be the harder one, but I don't really think it is. I just think you become more specialized, and just because you're specializing in something doesn't mean you're really better than someone else. But it's really up to you. So some companies call it financial side, some people call it the banking side, some people call it FIST. It just really depends on your company and what they name it. But like I said, banks, insurance companies, and all of that. With this segment, there's usually strict deadlines. So they usually have to file their financial statements in a specific period. So there's a strict deadline that you have to meet. So there will usually be a lot of overtime, because sometimes 8 hours a day is not enough. Actually, I don't think 8 hours is ever enough in anything. But you'll see, you'll work overtime just so that you can meet your deadline. And sometimes people like working overtime because you can make a bit of money on the side, but it's not always good, because overtime, certain companies don't actually pay out overtime. You just get like annual leave, and in certain cases you get annual leave, guys, but you can never use it because you are so busy. So it's like, I know I have so many days that have accumulated, but I still can't take leave because there's work to be done. So don't always rejoice about overtime and think that you're going to be making money. It's not really worth it. Some companies, even when they do pay out your overtime, it's not like they paid out the month after. No, usually you pay like once a year or once every not once every 2 years, once a year or twice a year. So like every 6 months they'll pay whatever overtime you've worked, if you want them to pay it. So I'm not gonna die over 6 months, hey. So people who should consider going into the financial services side are people who want to end up in banking. If banking is something that you are interested in, maybe you tried to do your articles through one of the banks and you didn't really get in, or you weren't really interested, maybe doing the financial services side of auditing will assist you greatly in getting an in-depth knowledge for when you do eventually branch into banking. Okay, because there's a lot of things that you learn whilst you're auditing. The controls, the processes. So by the time you jump into an actual bank, it's not like it's foreign. It's not like you're starting from A. You do have a bit of background, so you can just easily slide in. All right. So now moving to general, which is sometimes PCAOB. So if a company is listed under the general segment, it's usually because they are listed on the JSE. So this is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, basically meaning that a normal person like you and me can buy shares from them. So these companies usually have to be audited using stricter rules because there is a larger risk of manipulation. So just think about it. A listed company that has thousands, if not millions of people backing it, wanting it to make profit, will have that pressure to manipulate their financials. So let me just give you an example. If I am running a company with my dad, and instead of recording that I've only made 500 Rand sales, instead I go and I write that I've actually made 800 Rand sales, the only person that I am affecting is me and my dad. Maybe my mom and my brothers, but only maybe. It's not a big deal that I am lying on my financials. I really shouldn't, but it's not a big deal. Unlike if a big company, like a massive company that we've bought shares in, a company that maybe our parents' pensions are dependent on, suddenly lies and changes, maybe let's say they change it from 50 billion to 51 billion. It's such a small change. It's such a small change, but it is so risky because they are lying and they are deceiving people like you and me. So that is why companies that are listed are audited at a stricter level, because they have a really high public interest score. The public really does depend on your ratings and on your financials. So like I said, listed, so they're on the JSE. So usually there are strict deadlines with this as well, because they have to submit their financials to the JSE within a certain period. So you as the auditor will also have a deadline. It's not like, oh, the work is not getting done, so instead of finishing in 1 month, we're going to take 3 months. You can't do that, because the deadline is the deadline. And because of this, there will also be overtime. PCAOB now. PCAOB is just some of the listed clients. So not everything is PCAOB. And even if you do choose the PCAOB segment of auditing, you won't always have PCAOB because there's not a lot. So what this means, PCAOB, is the public... I wrote it down. It's the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. This is an American board that provides oversight on companies that are trading outside of their one country. For example, Coca-Cola ikona in South Africa, and Coca-Cola is also in America. So when we audit Coca-Cola in South Africa, we have to audit it in such a way that Coca-Cola USA can also make use of our financials. So we have to speak the same language. You can't write the one thing in English and then the other thing in Zulu, because a normal person might not be able to merge the two. So basically, there are certain requirements that you have to meet to make sure that the US or the UK or Australia or wherever can also make use of your documents. So companies that usually have this are companies that have a USA or international company like elsewhere. So they don't only operate in one country. The benefits of doing listed or PCAOB is that firstly, the companies are quite big. So it's companies that people like you and me will know. If I tell you I'm auditing Coca-Cola or MTN or Vodacom, you know what that is. Unlike in private, if I tell you, oh, I'm auditing CRC. Hey, bo, what is that? So, with public companies, you do get that advantage, especially on your CV. It does look good, but I must warn you, don't just do things for the sake of your CV. Like, do it if you really want to. Other advantages of doing this is that you can later on go and apply to become CFO at these companies. So if you've audited Coca-Cola for 3 years, you know what the auditors are usually looking for. You know what's expected of Coca-Cola. So you have that advantage, that competitive advantage when you become now a finance manager or a CFO that side, because you're like, no, listen, when I was an auditor, we would always catch you guys because you do ABC. So now let's make sure that we fix ABC so that next year the audit runs smoothly. So now you only probably get this like 1 or 2 years, like you have a lucky streak. But after that it will end because audit changes all the time, and you're not going to be able to access our templates or our guiding methods when you're out of audit. So yeah, so don't just do that just because you want to have an upper hand. It'll work just for a bit and then your luck will finish. But the most important one that I really wish I knew about is that if you are in PCAOB, when you want to go work abroad at an international company, move to the UK, the Cayman Islands or wherever, they usually ask if you do have any PCAOB experience because, it allows you to easily adapt that side. It's not a prerequisite, like it's not like if you don't have it, you're automatically cut out, but it is a really good benefit. But you won't always get PCAOB clients because they're not a lot. So don't stress if you don't know what this is. Don't stress if your company doesn't have it. If you want to go abroad, you definitely can with your CASA designation. Cool. And then finally, private. The sun is not on my side. I've even moved my car. But anyway, now onto the last one, private, guys. Private are usually, no, not that they're usually, private are companies that are not listed. So basically, you cannot buy their shares on a public platform. Maybe you can get invited by your rich uncle or your rich aunt, but it's not something that you and I can just get. Cool. So these are rumored to be small. People always think that if you're auditing private, it's a small company, but it's not always the case. You do get large companies that have just chosen to not go public because you don't always have to go public. The only thing that the Companies Act or like King 4 or whatever will ask you is that even if you're not public, please still get audited, like if you have a really high public interest score. But that's just it, okay? So with private, guys, because it's usually small companies, they usually allocate less trainees. So in private, you'll find that you are doing a lot more sections as a first year than what other first years are doing. So if you are in financial services or listed, there are like 8 other trainees. And then of those 8 trainees, there's probably like 3 or 4 first years. So you'll get one section, you'll test bank, the other one will test VAT, and the other one will test what else do you test? PPE. Whereas in a listed client, in a private client, because there's probably 3 people in the whole team. I've worked. I'm in private, by the way, and I've worked in many teams where it's the 3rd year, the 2nd year, and me. Sometimes it's just the 2nd year, me and the manager. And there has also been cases where it's just me and the manager. But yeah, what I'm saying is that because there's fewer staff, you'll find that as a first year, you'll be doing bank, VAT, trade payables, OPEX. You'll do a lot more sections at a quicker rate. So, I mean, it's really good for your learning curve because it just means that you get more experience with running a bigger audit than your other first years. So by the time you get to 3rd year, you've already run an audit yourself. Like, you probably know how to do this. It's not new. The downside to this is just that it is small and it is less strict. So there's less requirements that you have to follow, less stricter deadlines. Private companies, they don't really have pressure. It's not like they have to be audited. So sometimes it's a voluntary thing, and like the staff might not actually want to submit things, so the client will just take long, and instead of having a 1-month audit, now you're pushing 5 months. I'm really exaggerating, okay? But you know, there are no strict deadlines. Akona, but they're always pushed. I've actually never been on a client where I have one out of the 7 that I've tested where the deadline was the deadline, but everything else was just like, the deadline is X, but you know. So if you are someone who, maybe, I don't want to say doesn't like too much pressure, maybe private might be the best place for you. But the downside to this, the negative, is that because it doesn't finish, it just goes on. You find yourself moving on to client B, but client A is still sending you information, and you're still working on client A and B at the same time. So I mean, I'm guessing it runs throughout audit. It's not like finance and listed or like silos, but I'm pretty sure that in private we have a lot more run throughs. Like, clients do follow you a lot more because there's just no deadline, you know. And it really sucked during lockdown, because you know, when you're actually going into the office, a client can see that Unoguhle is here in our boardroom, which means she is still planned on our client. With lockdown, you would literally be on your 3rd client, but because they just assume that we're all working from home, she can quickly do this, they'll still call you, they'll still email you and all of that. So not the best part. But because I did say less strict deadlines, so less pressure, usually less overtime, but yeah, you know. And the reason you should consider going into private is maybe if you want to become a finance manager or a CFO at these small companies. They are more likely to hire you because you have audited them, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, so you are coming in with like valuable information. And also, it is really good if you are planning to become an entrepreneur. I think when you audit these big companies like banks or listed companies, because you only get exposed to this much of the company, you know, you're only testing bank or you're only testing vet, you don't get a big picture of the full company. Whereas with private companies, you know the whole, like you can you know what I'm saying? So if you are planning to be an entrepreneur, you're planning to run your own thing one day, at least you are able to see what other small companies are doing. And I say small, even though I did say not all of them are small, but at least you get experience. At least you get to talk to a lot of people in the entity. You're not just limited to the bank person or the vet person. You speak to anyone and everyone, and you know, and you hear a lot of their stories. You hear, oh, this is where we struggled when we started, so that you can also make sure that when you start your business, you don't copy their mistakes. So that's just it, guys. I've quickly jam-packed the whole thing into like this short video. I hope it's short. But yeah, so good luck with your choices. Don't overthink it. Like, even if you do choose public and then later on you want private, don't overthink it. Usually these things do interlink. It's not like you are just general or you are just private. I told you maybe in the future they will be able to like isolate us completely where no one can like overlap within the sections. But for now, there is a lot of this. So don't stress. The only thing where there's no is like financial services, because obviously super specialized, so you can't take someone from private into financial services when they actually haven't had experience, unless if you need them for a small section, which is fine. And also the PCAOB, they don't just take anyone for PCAOB. So yeah, and usually it's a cycle like this. Like, anyone in finance can do private, but not anyone in private can do finance. And this is not to say that finance is better than public or vice versa. It's just because specialized additional requirements, you might miss them, you might not know the risks, so you know it's not worth it. Right. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed. Please do share this video with your other friends who are possibly doing accounting or are possibly looking to do accounting. And yeah, just keep the love and spread the information. If you know of anything that I have missed, please do drop it in the comments. Let us know. We're all learning, you know. There's no person who is a master of knowledge. I am also here to learn. So, you know, I really do enjoy it when you guys do interact with me. So yeah. Alright. Bye-bye.